The city outside pulsed with midnight life, headlights casting fleeting shadows through the apartment's gauzy curtains. Inside, the world was still, almost sacred in its silence. But May was wide awake, lying motionless next to the man she thought she knew. At first, it was a murmur, something soft and indistinct. She assumed it was nonsense, the way dreams sometimes tangle with breath. But then came the name, too clear, too deliberate. A small guttural sigh followed. Then another whisper, more crushing in its simplicity, "Me, just until you come back." The words struck like a slow-motion slap, seeping into her consciousness before fully detonating. Her heart stilled for a second, then pounded so hard it felt like her ribs might crack. She didn't move, didn't breathe. On instinct, she reached beneath her pillow and tapped her phone. The screen lit up her face in the dark. Without thinking, she slid open the voice recorder and pressed record. Hands steady, though her chest was chaos. It wasn't the first time she'd wondered. Subtle things mostly, delayed replies, that lingering glance he gave his phone when he thought she wasn't watching, the quiet moments when he smiled to himself. And it wasn't for her. She waited, watched, eyes trained on the ceiling as Ed shifted beside her, murmuring fragments of a dream that suddenly felt far too real. She had once found his sleep talk endearing, human. Now it was evidence. The recording was just under 30 seconds. She replayed it once, holding the phone near her ear like it might burn her. His voice was low, dreamy, soft, the way someone speaks to someone they love. But the name wasn't hers. The tenderness wasn't meant for her. Sitting up slowly, she slid her legs over the side of the bed, the floor cool beneath her bare feet. Her reflection in the dark TV screen across the room startled her. Pale, disheveled, quiet, a woman with a secret she hadn't asked for. A woman who suddenly didn't recognize the home she helped build. But she didn't cry. Instead, she pulled her robe around her and padded silently into the kitchen. The hum of the refrigerator felt louder than usual. She poured herself a glass of water and stared at the subway tile above the sink, her mind already unfolding a new plan. She didn't need confirmation, she needed clarity. And then justice, not the screaming plate-throwing kind. No, that wasn't her, not anymore. Her fingers twitched slightly as an idea began to form, clear, cruel, controlled. She reached for her camera from the shelf, her constant companion, her silent witness, and brought it to the table. Then her laptop. The tools were all here, the pieces waiting to be assembled. If Ed had given her a role to play, a placeholder stand-in, then she'd play it, but on her terms, on her stage, with perfect lighting and just the right soundtrack. She tapped the space bar. A new video project, blank timeline, titled Placeholder. Her reflection flickered on the screen again. This time, she didn't look away. By morning, the city had resumed its usual rhythm, car horns below, espresso machines hissing in the cafe across the street, and Ed humming in the shower as though the night before had never happened. May sat at the kitchen counter, sipping coffee she didn't taste. Her eyes were fixed on her phone, thumb hovering over the play button. She listened to the recording again, not for clarity, but for resolve. His voice was dreamy, intimate, certain. He hadn't hesitated to say it. That's what haunted her most, Savannah. May's just, until you come back. He didn't know what he'd confessed, and she didn't tell him. That morning, she kissed his cheek as he left for work. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. He didn't notice. Once alone, she opened his laptop. The password was still the same, Sev426. She had joked once that using an ex's name was a red flag. He had laughed it off, claimed it was a running joke from college, an inside thing with his roommate. She hadn't believed it then. Now she knew better. It didn't take long. The emails were clean, but the archive messages, saved innocently under a folder named Old Clients, were anything but. She opened the first one. His words poured out like soft poison. "I never stopped thinking about you. I only stayed with May because I thought you were gone for good." Her throat tightened, but she forced herself to read every word, every timestamp, every emoji. They had reconnected 6 months ago. A photo of the lake house, a heart emoji. One message written just 2 weeks ago, stuck like a splinter. "I'm keeping her warm, Sav, until you're ready to come home." The bile rose in her throat, but she didn't let it show, not even to herself. She began collecting, quietly, methodically, their shared drives, synced albums, love notes he had sent during the early stages of their relationship, every romantic whisper, every smiling selfie, every morning after video he once asked her to record. claiming he loved how real she looked with messy hair. She paired it with the soundbite from the night before. She slowed the audio, looped it, let the phrase bleed into itself like a haunting refrain. Means just until you come back. The effect was chilling, exactly as she wanted. Each scene she selected wasn't random. She knew what she was doing. A picnic under string lights, her laughter echoing off a lakeside dock, him whispering "I love you" with his fingers tangled in her hair, a tender shot of her resting against his chest, the camera slightly tilted. She added soft piano beneath it, just enough to contrast the ache. This wasn't just a breakup video, it was an autopsy. By the end of the first day, she had 24 clips assembled. By the end of the second, the structure was clear. 4 chapters, each one building toward the inevitable reveal. She titled the final segment Truth, and in its opening seconds, she inserted a single frame of a paused text message. He'll never know, she's too nice. She paused the edit, laughed once. Cold, quiet. Her fingers moved with precision now. No tremble, no second guessing. She wasn't unraveling. Later that night, Ed came home humming again. He brought Thai food and kissed her forehead. She asked about his day, smiled at the right places, laughed once. The performance was seamless. If anything, he seemed relieved, perhaps even smug. As they curled up to watch a show, he draped his arm around her. She rested her head on his shoulder like she always had. But now her eyes weren't on the screen, they were on her reflection in the blank of the blank TV. Focused, calm. The placeholder was about to become the author. The message came on a Wednesday, a simple ping on Ed's phone as he shaved, steam curling from the bathroom mirror. May was in the kitchen, scrolling through headlines, pretending not to listen, but her ears had become attuned to his tones, his chuckle, his soft gasp, the faint he made when reading something that struck him emotionally. This one was softer, a surprised exhale followed by a pause too long to be casual. She didn't look up until he walked in, phone in hand, face trying hard not to beam. That was Savannah, he said, as if mentioning an old college friend. She's going to be in the city for a few days. For work, I think. May blinked once. Oh, he scratched the back of his neck. Yeah, weird timing. I haven't seen her in forever. I mean, there's nothing. She just said she might stop by. His words were stumbling over themselves, unsure which story to stick with. May gave him nothing, not even a raised eyebrow. That's nice, she said, buttering a slice of toast. He hesitated, then kissed the top of her head, as though sealing her into the lie. She didn't flinch. That night she opened a new folder on her desktop, labeled it Saturday. The plan was simple, seamless even. Savannah's visit gave her a perfect excuse, one that would look like affection, not retaliation. She suggested dinner. We should invite her over, May said with practiced ease. Be good to meet her finally. Ed blinked. She could see him trying to gauge her temperature, searching for signs of jealousy, of suspicion, but her tone was so smooth, so warm, that he didn't question it. Sure, he said, forcing nonchalance. Yeah, totally. I'll cook, May added. Some nice, make it cozy. Ed grinned. She's gonna love you. That was the point. Saturday arrived, cloaked in stillness. May woke early, cleaned the apartment meticulously, not in the frantic way of someone trying to impress a guest, but like an artist preparing a gallery. She ironed the linen table runner, polished the wine glasses until they caught the afternoon sun like crystal traps. Her movements were quiet, deliberate, a calm before the storm that only she could hear. Ed hovered, slightly on edge. Babe, you don't have to go all out, he said, watching her light tall candles. But she just smiled. It's nice to do things right. By 7, the apartment glowed. Candles, warm lights, a soft playlist of instrumental jazz in the background. The scent of roasted vegetables and rosemary chicken floated through the air like memory. When the doorbell rang, Ed darted for it, a little too eager. May remained by the dining table, hands clasped, composed. Sambon entered like a perfume ad, flawless in a tailored cream coat, red lips sharp as punctuation. Her eyes swept the room, then landed on May. You must be May, she said, smiling as if they were old friends at a reunion. And you must be Savannah, May replied. Their handshake was brief, but not without weight. There was a flicker of calculation behind both smiles, a silent acknowledgement this wasn't just dinner. They ate slowly, the air thick with pleasantries. Ed was the bridge between them, bouncing conversation like a juggler trying to keep both women entertained. But every time Savannah laughed at one of his jokes, her eyes flicked toward May, measuring, wondering if she knew, if she cared. May never broke. She spoke softly, asked questions, refilled glasses. It wasn't until dessert, chocolate tart with sea salt and brandied cherries, that the table fell quiet. May stood to retrieve the final touch. "I thought we could end with something special," she said, crossing to the living room. Ed furrowed his brow. "What do you mean?" She held up the remote. "Home video," she said simply. Before either could object, she pressed play. The TV flickered to life. At first, it was beautiful, a highlight reel of a relationship in bloom. Ed and May laughing beside a lake, dancing in the kitchen, kissing in the golden light of early morning. A slow piano melody cradled the visuals. Savannah smiled faintly. "You two look happy," she said. But the music shifted. Then came the voice. "Savannah," a pause. "May's just until you come back." Savannah stiffened. Ed's face drained of color. "What is this?" he asked, already rising. May didn't move. She stood between him and the TV, like a guardian of the truth. "You should watch," she said, voice flat. The montage grew darker now. Overlaid texts. The old clients folder. His words, read aloud in his own voice, laid bare against images of love, now turned brittle. One message hovered too long. "She's too nice. She'll never find out." Savannah's wine glass trembled. She set it down slowly. And then her voice, quiet. "I didn't come back for you," she said to Ed. He turned, stunned. "I'm getting married," she added. "This was a goodbye. That's all." "Me?" He said nothing. Ed stumbled toward the TV, fumbled for the remote. May stepped forward, blocking him. "She deserved to see it," she said coldly. "We both did." Silence followed. Savannah rose without another word, collected her coat, and walked to the door. She didn't look back. It stood alone, mouth slack, surrounded by candlelight and consequence. May took her keys from the bowl near the door, lifted her bag from the hook. He turned. "May," she stopped. "You lied to me," she said, her voice razor sharp in its calm. "But worse, you thought I'd never figure it out. Then, after a long pause, now you're alone, for real." She closed the door behind her, and for the first time in months, she felt weightless. The apartment was quiet, too quiet. After the door closed behind her, Ed stood frozen for a few seconds, as though the scene might reverse itself if he didn't move. But the candles kept burning, the TV still glowed with the final, damning frame. "You were just a placeholder." He sank into the nearest chair. It creaked beneath him, loud in the silence. The scent of roasted rosemary and melted chocolate still clung to the air, mocking him. His hand reached instinctively for his phone. No new messages, no missed calls. He opened the chat with May, stared at the thread. She had sent him a selfie just yesterday, smiling, in the mirror, sleeves pushed up, flour dusting her cheek. Underneath, "Should I add more sugar or trust the recipe?" He hadn't replied, not until 2 hours later. "Whatever you think. It'll be perfect anyway." Now, he couldn't even bring himself to type. Across the table, the wine in Savannah's glass remained untouched. Her lipstick still marked the rim. He wanted to throw it, smash it against the wall, but the rage never arrived. Only stillness. He leaned forward, elbows on the table, head in his hands. And for the first time in years, Ed began to feel the weight of being alone. Not the kind that fades when the apartment goes dark, but the kind that echoes, uninvited, in every room you used to share with someone who loved you. Elsewhere in the city, May walked in the opposite direction of home. Headphones in, shoulders up against the breeze. She let the music fill the spaces where anger used to live. She wasn't crying, not even tempted. Her tears had dried weeks ago, long before the recording, long before the editing. Now there was only space, clarity. She had booked a hotel for the night. Small, quiet, tucked between a bookstore and a bakery. The receptionist greeted her by name. "We've got you in 307 corner room, the one with the big windows." She smiled. "Perfect." In the elevator, she allowed herself a single deep breath. Not relief, not pride, something quieter, peace, maybe, or the beginning of it. Later that night, Ed sat on the floor of the living room, legs sprawled like a kid in timeout. He had watched the video again. All of it twice. Each frame was a betrayal of his own making. He hadn't just lied, he had underestimated her. Assumed that silence meant acceptance, that her stillness meant she'd never act, that she needed him more than she needed the truth. That had always been his flaw, mistaking patience for passivity. In the dim light, he opened his laptop. The folder was still there. Old clients. Each message felt foreign now, like they were written by someone else, some other version of him. Immature, arrogant, greedy for validation. She's a good person, but you're the one who really knows me. I think about you all the time, even when I'm with her. Every sentence reeked of cowardice. He opened the fridge, nothing but a half-eaten salad May made earlier that week and a bottle of white wine. He poured a glass, then poured it out a moment later. Nothing tasted like anything. The apartment had never felt this quiet before. Not even during their fights, but this wasn't a fight. This was after. Back at the hotel, May sat on the windowsill, knees tucked to her chest, watching the city unfold below. From up here, everything looked clean, organized, far away from the noise she had just left behind. She opened her laptop. The project files still glowed on her desktop. She clicked through to the ending, paused on the exact frame of Ed's face when the voiceover began. He had looked like a man realizing the house was burning only after smelling the smoke. She watched herself in the corner of the frame, standing calmly, no fear in her posture, no chaos in her eyes. For a long moment, she stared at that version of herself, the one who refused to shrink, who said nothing and let the truth scream for her. A notification popped up. Instagram, one new message. She clicked a message request. From Savannah. I didn't know he's still with you. I'm sorry. I didn't come to take him back. I hope you know that. May read it twice, then close the app. Some things didn't require responses. At 2:17 a.m., Ed finally lay down in bed. The sheets still smelled like her. Lavender, clean cotton, some essential oil she'd always dab on her wrist before sleep. He turned to her side out of habit, stared at the pillow. He grabbed his phone, typed out a message. I'm sorry. He stared at the blinking cursor for a long time, then added, "Please come back." But he didn't hit send because deep down, he knew this story wasn't his anymore. It belonged to her. The morning light filtered in soft and pale through the hotel curtains, casting long shadows on the minimalist decor. May stood barefoot on the wooden floor, sipping bitter coffee from a ceramic mug, her camera bag slung over one shoulder. The room behind her was still, the kind of silence that follows storms. She checked her phone. No new messages. She expected that. Ed had always been the kind of man who panicked late but recovered early. He was probably pacing the apartment now, telling himself it was all a misunderstanding, a glitch in timing, a moment of weakness gone too far. He might even be convincing himself she'd forgive him. But May wasn't waiting for apologies. Not anymore. She zipped her bag shut and took one last glance around the room. It wasn't home, but had served its purpose, a breathing space between the life she was leaving and the one still taking shape. And on the street, the city moved as it always had, oblivious, humming, alive. She blended into it effortlessly. Clean jeans, a loose coat, hair tied back in a simple knot, no makeup, no mask. She stopped at a crosswalk and opened her music app, headphones already in, scrolled for a moment, then tapped play. You Were Never the One. The song hit immediately, soft, melancholic, with just enough defiance to make her chin lift. As the chorus swelled, May stepped into the street. Each lyric felt like a stitch, pulling her back together. He had never truly seen her, not really, not beyond her silence, her patience, her convenience. He had loved the space she gave him, not the woman who chose to give it. But that version of her, the quiet placeholder, the gentle interim, no longer existed. Back in the apartment, Ed sat slouched on the couch, eyes bloodshot. The video paused on the last frame. Her name, signed in delicate script at the bottom corner of the screen. Not a flourish, not a plea, a signature. Final. Cleat, he had called her once. Then again, left one voicemail. Can we talk? That was it. He knew better than to beg. She had taught him that in the most elegant, devastating way possible. The apartment looked wrong without her. Too cold, too bare. Even the light seemed different, harsher now, as if it too had sided with her. He wandered into the kitchen and found her coffee mug, the one with the chipped lip she never bothered to replace. He held it like it might speak. May found herself outside a gallery downtown, small, independent, tucked between a wine bar and a florist. She stepped inside on impulse. The space was bright, full of photographs suspended in silence, light and shadow, intimacy and distance. Every frame told a story. A woman behind the desk looked up. We're reviewing local submissions this week if you're an artist, she said warmly. May smiled. Maybe I am. For the first time in weeks, she didn't feel like she was pretending to be someone else. That night, she sat by the window of her new apartment, smaller but hers. Her laptop was open again. Not for revenge, but creation. She clicked new project, no title this time, just space as she imported clips, not of Ed, but of herself, her street photography, her travels, the lake, her own laughter caught accidentally in the mirror. She realized something. She hadn't made that video for him. She'd made it for herself. A reclamation, a reminder. She no longer needed to be chosen. She had already chosen herself. You were never the one, but I am. The song echoed in her ears, and for the first time in a long time, May smiled, not because someone told her to, but because it was hers. The last frame faded to black.